Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. As promising as it may be, moving forward on SAI would also raise a number of challenges for our government and for the international community. On the technical side, greenhouse gas emission reductions would still have to accompany SAI to address other climate change effects, such as ocean acidification, because SAI alone would not remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. On the geopolitical side, the technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations. Others might seize on SAI's benefits and back away from their commitment to carbon dioxide reductions. And as with other breakthrough technologies, global norms and standards are lacking to guide the deployment and implementation of SAI and other geoengineering initiatives.
HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, is a scientific facility located in Gacoma, Alaska, for studying the ionosphere, the outermost layer of the Earth's atmosphere. The site was chosen due to the area's flat ground and presence of auroras. Aurora is named for the Roman goddess of the dawn who traveled from east to west announcing the coming of the sun. The auroras occur when charged particles mix with gases in the Earth's upper atmosphere. Called the northern or southern lights depending on the location near the north or south poles, these auroras are known to affect radio waves. The U.S. Air Force and Navy proposed the HAARP project, and the Air Force began its construction in 1993. The main instrument is the Ionospheric Research Instrument, IRI, known to be a high-powered radio frequency transmitter which injects energy into the ionosphere in order to control it. Because HAARP heats up the ionosphere, it alters the density of the electrons. Scientists then study how the ionosphere reacts to changes in its condition. HAARP claims it, quote-unquote, used to enhance communications and surveillance systems for both civilian and defense purposes.
Relationship with the University of Alaska to perhaps take over the HAARP.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. The Air Force has gotten great value out of HAARP in the past. We took over from the Navy and managed it and actually did a number of experiment campaigns up there and have finished our work that we're interested in doing up there. We've moving on to other ways of managing the ionosphere, which the HAARP was really designed to do, was to inject energy into the ionosphere to be able to actually control it.
The earliest non-classified references to radiation and bioelectric technology, however, appears in a patent 3951134, Apparatus and Method for Remotely Monitoring and Altering Brainwaves, R.G. Malik, April 20th, 1976. The objective was to study the conscious subject's brainwaves without his awareness. The apparatus monitors brainwaves using high-frequency transmitters operated to radiate electromagnetic energy of different frequencies through antennas, which are capable of scanning the entire brain of the test subject or any desired region. The patent also admits that subjects' neurological processes would be affected by transmitting signals to it, which they also say is the objective. According to a correspondence from Russian Parliament to Vladimir Putin, there was a major concern about HAARP as a geophysical weapon that affects the near-Earth medium. The document expressed the experiment's negative effect on mental health and weapons capable of breaking radio communication. Yet, U.S. internal military correspondents affirmed this. The document called for a prohibition of rainmaking used as a weapon by the U.S. cloud seeding and chemical employed to foil radar. In a letter to the President by Claiborne Pell, writes, as chairman of the Subcommittee on Oceans and International Environment, I have been very much concerned over unofficial and unconfirmed reports that the United States has attempted to modify weather conditions in Southeast Asia as an instrument of warfare. The United States secretly seeded clouds in North Vietnam, South Vietnam, and Laos to hinder troops and their equipment. One CIA agent admitted to its first use in 1963. During March 20th, 1967 through July 5th, 1972, the U.S. launched Operation Popeye, a highly classified weather modification program in southern Asia in an attempt to extend monsoon season, specifically in Ho Chi Minh Trail. The project was a part of Stepping Up the War, a request made by Chiefs of Staff to the White House in February 1967 to reduce trafficability along infiltration routes. Sponsored by the Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and the CIA without the authorization of the Secretary of Defense, who denied to Congress its use as a tactical weapon existed. In July 20th, 1972, the U.S. admitted to dumping 7 inches of water in 2 hours on their Special Forces camps. The initiative killed thousands. The process of cloud seeding is a scientific technology that enhances a cloud's ability to produce precipitation by dropping silver iodine crystals, otherwise known as dry ice, either at the top or the base of a cloud. Much of the basic research was provided by Navy scientists and the seeding operations flown by Air Weather Service. Quote, "We have been able to almost, at will, to make them," speaking of clouds, grow explosively. It can be done either by aerial process of delivering seed agents by aircraft or the grounds by pyrotechnic applications. This is not the only method. In 1902, Charles Hatfield, quote, "the rainmaker," was employed by the city of San Diego to use his methods of moisture acceleration. In the Bible, it's known as observing the times, which means to make appear or to bring clouds. In other words, he was a sorcerer.
Hatfield had lived in San Diego County since 1888. He had moved here with his family when he was around 9 years of age. And they made and manufactured, sold, and repaired sewing machines. But Charlie had a hobby. He had something else that interested him, and that was how to make rain. Charlie read many different books. He talked with other people who had been rainmakers over a period of years and found out what worked best for them. So in 1902, at the family farm in Bonsall, he began practicing with different chemicals and in different combinations.
The basic idea for rainmaking is you're not going to produce it out of a clear sky. But if you have a lot of clouds in the sky, then the idea is, well, what can we do to those clouds to make them drop their water? And the usual idea is to put out some kind of chemical into the clouds to cause the water to clump or be attracted to it so that a drop gets to be heavy enough that it falls out of the sky.
Charlie's first paying job was in 1904, where he was hired to bring rain near Los Angeles. After 4 months of feeding the clouds, Charlie brought the city around 18 inches of rain, pleasing the city and officially launching his rainmaking career.
He had done this all over the West, from Alaska to Texas and Idaho and Oregon. People had hired him to make rain in their area. So he was somewhat famous for this side business that he had. So San Diego approached him. Charlie Hatfield said he could fill the Marina Reservoir within a year. Marina Reservoir, to be filled, held 15 billion gallons of water. It was only a third full, so Charlie had to be able to have enough rain and runoff to generate 10 billion gallons. And they all felt that for $10,000, that was a good deal.
Charlie and one of his brothers immediately went out to Lake Marina and began building a tall tower where he would mix his chemicals. Charlie built towers such as these at each of his job sites.
Now, these were large, open pan towers that were probably about 20 to 30 feet high. And he mixed his chemicals in the open pan at the top, and the chemicals evaporated up into the atmosphere and, according to Charlie, caused the rain.
Those wanting a peek at Charlie's experiments saw little to impress them. There were no explosions and no smoke billowing from the tower. Seth Swanson, Marina damkeeper, would occasionally pay Charlie a visit, only to be greeted by a highly secretive scientist.
Charlie loved to have people talk with him, but he never actually did things while people were there. he was secretive about his process and about what kind of things went on. So Swenson talked with him, but he told stories about the fact that Charlie would come down off the tower to talk with him and not do anything when Swenson was there. When Swenson would go away, then Charlie would go back up into the tower and mix chemicals or do other things of that nature. The first rain that Charlie felt that he had enhanced began on about January 10th. And it rained fairly consistently, both inland and in San Diego, over the next 3 or 4 days. But on January 14th and 15th, it really began to pour. The heavy rains between the 14th and the 18th caused flooding in the San Diego River Valley. It caused flooding in the Otay River Valley. It caused some flooding in the Sweetwater River Valley. And it caused the lake behind the Otay Dam to become full. In fact, a little bit of water went over the dam on the Otay Dam at that point. Many roads were washed out. Many railroad lines were washed out with this first rain. But everybody felt that that was it, because around the 19th, the rain stopped.
But Charlie had a contract to complete. Marina Reservoir was to be filled. So upon his tower, he remained.
Hatfield continued to use his chemicals and to continue the evaporation process even when these rains stopped for approximately a week. Apparently, Marina Reservoir wasn't full at that point. The rain started again on January 24th, but it wasn't severe and people weren't too concerned. But it continued, and it rained on the 25th, and it rained tremendous amounts on the 26th. And people throughout San Diego County began to get very concerned because they hadn't really had a major recovery from the first storm.
Downtown San Diego records 2.19 inches of rain on January the 27th. But more importantly, San Diego River is 435 square miles. It goes all the way out to the backcountry mountains. And in some of those areas, rainfalls on January 27th were 24 inches, 30 inches. And so an incredible volume of water comes down Mission Valley. 72,000 cubic feet per second, the biggest flood of the 20th century in San Diego.
People were trying to figure out how to just stay alive during this. The people in the city of San Diego were isolated because roads leading out had been wiped out. The rain wiped out most of the railroad tracks. Over 200 bridges throughout San Diego County were destroyed or gone.
But the amount of rain still hitting San Diego made dam keepers worry. How much more could their dams take?
The Lake Marina Dam, which was the focus for all of this rain, actually held up. So Charlie was successful. He filled Marina Dam. The Sweetwater Dam was a different story. The Sweetwater Dam held, but it held because the rocks that were at the edges of the dam were eroded away by the amount of water that was there. So the water not only went over the top of the dam, but it went around the sides of the dam. But what we remember the most is the Otay Dam. Lower Otay Reservoir Dam collapsed as a result of this second storm.
A 20-foot high wall of water moving 8 miles an hour basically killed anybody who hadn't evacuated in the Otay River Valley. That remains the 5th deadliest dam failure disaster in U.S. history.
The damage that were caused by these two storms and by the collapse of the lower Otay Dam was devastating to San Diego County. Farms were destroyed. Animals were lost. You can imagine the San Diego River ran from Kearny Mesa to Kensington. People could not cross the river. The roads were washed out. The bridges were washed out. All of the railroad bridges were gone. Several railroads that had been built in San Diego before this time were never rebuilt. It was just too expensive, and people were concerned that there might be another flood event.
On January 30th, Charlie dismantled his tower and began heading back to receive his reward. but in the eyes of the public, Hatfield went from magician to pariah.
Along the way, he began to talk to people and recognized what damage had been caused, and that people were very angry with him. And as a matter of fact, many people wanted to lynch him. They actually went out to find Hatfield and to get rid of him because he had caused so much damage. Some of the people on the city council felt that they were honor-bound to pay Charlie his $10,000 because Charlie had filled the Marina Reservoir, which was the contract and agreement. But some people were going to sue the city of San Diego for the damage that had happened to their crops and their livestock. And so, through his attorney, when Charlie asked for his money, he was told that if he agreed to say that all the damage was his fault because he had brought this rain in, that the city fathers would pay him the $10,000. But Charlie and his lawyer were smart, and they knew that if he agreed to that, that he would be paying these people off for years to come. And so they said no, they would not claim that Charlie had caused this damage to happen. And so city of San Diego never paid Charlie his $10,000.
HAARP is not only used to control the weather, but responsible for Project Bluebeam and mind control. HAARP is found to activate the scalar wave technology in pyramids and triggers their dormant torsion fields that can be harnessed and used on demand. The technology was used by Nikola Tesla and demonstrated by the Hutchinson effect, which shows the technology can create energy storms, achieve anti-gravity, and transmute matter. The torsion fields, however, can affect biological processes.
Civilization on Earth. No matter what country you live in, they surround you. From the ancient to the most modern, pyramids come in a variety of different shapes and sizes. There are 250 pyramids in China, over 100,000 pyramids in Mesoamerica, and thousands of pyramids all over Europe. In 1998, after 20 years of research, Christopher Dunn wrote The Giza Power Plant. In it, he showed how harmonic resonance was utilized to convert Earth's vibrational energies into electromagnetic radiation. In the Giza Death Star, the pyramids were described as weapons of mass destruction, beaming electromagnetic waves into space. In 2000, a beam of energy blasted from the apex of the Pyramid of the Moon in Teotihuacan, Mexico towards the ionosphere. On July 24, 2009, Hector Salazar photographed a pale pink energy beam emanating from the Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza in Mexico, as a thunderstorm began. In May 2011, Semir Osmanić at the Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia tested for ultra and infrasonic emissions. The results proved positive. Schumann frequencies, which are global electromagnetic resonances, excited by lightning discharges in the cavity formed by the Earth's surface and ionosphere, were detected as well. Here are the best-known Schumann frequencies. Notice that the 32 Hz frequency measured in the Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia is close to the Schumann frequency of 33 Hz. What about the Great Pyramid of Giza? The King's Chamber resonates at 438 Hz. 7.83 Hz multiplied by a factor of 56 octaves equals 438.48 Hz. All pyramids on planet Earth are tuned to Schumann frequencies. So how are pyramids able to beam energy and receive it from the ionosphere, and for what purpose? Are pyramids simply power plants, or maybe some kind of weapon? Pyramids utilize the four basic elements: air, water, earth, and fire. The Pyramid of Giza, for example, first operated like a giant acoustical instrument, similar to a whistle or recorder. In a recorder, air is compressed into a linear airstream by a channel cut into the fipple at A. It then travels through the duct to the windway at B. As it exits, it hits the labium at C. This causes the air to oscillate with standing waves. In the Pyramid of Giza, air is compressed when water is piped down the entrance passageway B towards the lower chambers. As it moves up the Grand Gallery, D, it hits the antechamber, E, and first air shaft. This causes the air in the King's chamber, F, to oscillate with standing waves. The process of electrolysis begins in the subterranean chamber pit. Hydrogen and oxygen are separated when the magnetic field of one of Earth's grid lines fluxes during the early dawn hours as the sun rises. The Pyramid of Giza was built on top of one of these geomagnetic points to make this decomposition possible. A waterline in the Queen's Chamber passageway indicates how high the water was in the Pyramid of Giza. At this point, oxygen filled up primarily in the Queen's Chamber while hydrogen filled up the Grand Gallery and King's Chamber. Two types of devices were removed from the Pyramid of Giza. The 28 pair of slots in the Grand Gallery were filled with sheds. More than a symbol, the rectangular bases of these pillars fit into the slots. One type was used in the Grand Gallery while another type was used in the Queen's Chamber. The sheds in the Grand Gallery were similar to Tesla coils. They operated like electrical resonant transformers. Electricity would arc between two sheds and expand upward along the corbelled arch until it hit the ceiling of the Grand Gallery. This photo inside the Grand Gallery seems to show evidence of an electric discharge. Scorch marks seen on the ceiling are a clear indication of electricity strikes. The shed in the Queen's Chamber was a receiver for the electricity generated in the Grand Gallery and amplified in the King's Chamber. This shed has the ankh symbol with human arms which are holding an orb. In 1970, Ray Brown found such a crystal in a pyramid in the Bermuda Triangle. The crystal he found has magnetic properties. It can repel a coiled stainless steel rod. Since the ions in the crystal are negative, we can assume it would attract positive ions. This is what it was designed to do. Pull in positive ions from the ionosphere. Once the receiving shed was placed in the niche of the Queen's Chamber, VLF, very low frequency, waves were generated. However, this design does not transmit any waves. It only pulls in energy like a tractor beam. This is because the transmitter is inside the pyramid. Because the outer casing of the Pyramid of Giza was covered with white Tura limestone, a perfect insulator, no electricity was released. No one benefited from this electricity. Instead, the pyramid was used as a torsion field generator. A torsion field is a twisting or spiraling force. Here is a view of this force as seen from above. Pyramids can store up to 85% energy. No other shape can achieve this. By utilizing Schumann frequencies and imprisoning this energy from the ionosphere, pyramids are tapping into human unconsciousness. Human thoughts and feelings create torsion waves. Are pyramids tapping into our souls or minds and controlling them? The pineal gland or third eye makes melatonin, a hormone that regulates our sleep cycle. Some call it the seat of the soul. Others feel it allows us a way to enlightenment, or higher states of consciousness. If this gland allows us to connect to the spiritual realm, then why are pyramids imprisoning this energy?
HAARP is accused of driving people crazy.
Dreamer first. Tell me about Dreamer.
Oh, well, when I saw the State of the Black Union, Dick Gregory really moved me and a lot of my friends. I show it to everybody that comes over the house, especially white folks, because they need to hear that, you know, so that they know more about all of us. Because what he said affects all of us. He said something that really hit home about this phenomena of chemtrails. And, you know, when I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time. And so, oh, that's cool. A jet just went over. And then you started to see a whole bunch of them. And the next thing you know, everybody in your neighborhood was fighting and arguing, and you didn't know why. Okay? And you really didn't know why. I mean, everybody was fighting. So he started riffing about the chemtrails.
In Windsor, Ontario, people have complained of an incessant hum which fades and returns with greater intensity like a wave. Reports of sleeplessness, irritability, lack of appetite, and depression have accompanied the sounds. In woodland England, the hum becomes infrasonic, just below the range of the human ear, so low that it causes objects to vibrate. People have claimed nervous breakdowns and seizures. Even the animals have been reported to be lethargic, while others turn overtly aggressive. Interestingly, Scottish residents reported a low-frequency noise similar to a police siren in 1980s. The hum returned 35 years later. One neighbor, Georgia Hislop, left town to escape the hum, claiming it was interfering with the electronic implant in her back, making her violently sick. In Dunbarton, Scotland, 44 minutes away, a great mystery lies at Overtown Bridge. Dog walkers are warned, as there has been since 1950s over 300 doggy suicides. Witnesses have reported a sudden change in their dog, while others have watched their dogs climb to the wall of the bridge and jump 50 feet to the bed of rocks below. If they survive the fall, they reclimb the wall and jump again.